Good evening. Everybody ready to stretch a little bit? Okay, those of you on this side, if the boat tips over, it's going to go this way. So I just want to let you know that life preservers will be needed if you're on that side. Well, welcome, and welcome to those of you who've joined us on Zoom as well. You're hearing me okay? All right, good to see everyone there and here on this beautiful day. Turned out very nicely. If you were listening to the radio in the mid-1960s, you heard a song written by Paul McCartney and John Lennon, which asked the question, all the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? Look at all the lonely people. Tonight I'd like to talk about loneliness, not just as a psychological issue, but as a spiritual issue and as an opportunity for practicing the Dharma. Think about this. Loneliness can be anywhere, especially right now. And what's interesting is in this highly technological age, there are people who are lonely while constantly being surrounded by communication. Phones, text, social media, emails, endless information. And yet many people quietly feel unseen, disconnected, forgotten, or emotionally isolated. In his 2023 book, Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World, former U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy called loneliness a public health epidemic. And depending on which survey you cite, some say between a quarter and a third of Americans report significant loneliness. And it's not just older people. Young adults report extremely high rates of loneliness. Middle-aged caregivers, people living alone, divorced people, people under financial stress. Even people constantly connected online can still feel lonely. In many ways, modern society has become very efficient at connection, but not very good at belonging. The Buddha understood something very important about this long ago. Human beings suffer deeply when they feel disconnected. Now, the Buddha may have not used the modern word loneliness, but the Pali Canon is filled with teachings about companionship, kindness, care, friendship, generosity, and the suffering that comes from isolation. So what I want to explore tonight is, how does helping lonely people become part of our Dharma practice? Not separate from practice, not extra credit, but actually part of awakening itself. And one of the most beautiful teachings in the suttas comes from a conversation between the Buddha and Ananda in the Upada Sutta, which is part of the connected discourses. Ananda says to the Buddha, admirable friendship is half of the holy life. And the Buddha replied, no, Ananda, admirable friendship is the whole of the holy life. The whole of the holy life. That's something remotely different from how practice may be pictured. Sometimes we imagine spiritual practice as a solitary activity. Meditate alone, studying alone, trying to fix our minds alone. But the Buddha says relationship matters immensely. Who we encourage, who encourages us, who we sit beside, who reminds us of goodness, who helps us remember wisdom when we forget. One thing I don't know that we've recovered from as a society from the pandemic was we got used to spreading out. Remember during the pandemic, we were nobody was sitting beside each other. I mean, triplets here, that didn't happen. 3 people sitting together. And it was a part of the time. But togetherness, relationship matters enormously. And the Pali term is kalanamita, spiritual friendship, which is friendship that's grounded in care, truthfulness, encouragement, and compassion. And if you think about it, loneliness is often not simply the absence of people, it's the absence of feeling generally known, generally welcomed, generally cared about. You can be in a crowded room and still feel lonely. So one of the best gifts we can give to another human being is our presence. As a hospice chaplain and grief counselor, I can't tell you how many times that I've been asked, well, after someone loses someone, what do you say? What do you say? Well, the most important thing is presence. Just being there. Not fixing, not advising. Presence that's not correcting, not debating. But letting someone else feel that I'm here. I see you. You matter. There's another story in the Vinaya Pitaka where the Buddha comes across a monk who's sick. The monk's lying alone in his own waste because the other monks have neglected him. Why? Because he was thought to be no longer useful to them. What did the Buddha do? He himself washed the monk and cared for him. Then he gathered the Sangha and said, whoever would care for me should care for the sick. And these words are stated in other traditions as well. It's one thing that I enjoyed about my time working with Mecklenburg Ministries, the discovery that there are 10, maybe even 12 world religions that basically follow the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But compassion, according to the Buddha, is more than a feeling. It becomes real through action. What are some of these actions? Visiting someone, calling someone. Remember when people used to just drop in? That hasn't happened in a long time. I mean, I feel like sometimes if I dropped in on somebody, I could be arrested or worse. What are you doing here? Who died? But listening, checking in, helping someone who has become invisible. Think about the people in your life who may be invisible. The cashier, maybe even a neighbor, the widow, the teenager nobody understands, the exhausted caregiver, maybe a quiet person you encounter, maybe even here in our Sangha, or a person who stopped showing up. And one reason we often don't notice is because we're moving too fast. Rushed, distracted, overstimulated. I mean, I thought I was going to slow down when I retired. That didn't help a bit. Of course, I took a part-time job, but even then, there's, when I got to. Rushed, distracted, overstimulated. But mindfulness goes beyond just being aware of the breath. Mindfulness is also aware of suffering. And part of the wonderful teaching of the Buddha is that the Buddha noticed suffering wherever he went. And part of our practice is learning to notice too. The Metta Sutta, Sutta on Loving Kindness, gives another beautiful teaching that's relevant to loneliness. It says we should radiate loving kindness toward all beings, whether near or far, seen or unseen. Remember that part of it? And that phrase just isn't about people who are geographically far away. I know when I first heard of metta and was doing metta, and we would get to that last part where we would say, all around the world. I would go to other countries. I would go as far out as I could go, not realizing that some people who are unseen might be right beside me, are very near to me. The elderly person nobody visits anymore. I'm going to try to tell this without getting upset. I was downright saddened yesterday. A person that I've been seeing for 2 years, she's dying now. And she and her husband have been married for 65 years. His name's the same as mine. And he was just sitting in the den by himself. Nobody was around. Nobody was there as he processed 65 years of thoughts. I had another visit to make, but I delayed it. And just sat down with him. He didn't talk a whole lot. I didn't talk a whole lot. But being there as much as you can for somebody who is alone. The socially awkward person. I know about these. I used to be one. You probably don't think that, but yes, I was. It's good being tall, but when you're taller than everybody and it's kindergarten, that's tough. Depressed person, immigrant, or new resident who feels left behind by the culture. People whose spouse died or child died and becomes a grieving person that everyone avoids because they don't know what to say. And the Metta Sutta asks us to deliberately include everyone in our circle of care. Not only the easy people, not only our favorites, not only those who agree with us politically, not only those who are useful to us, but everybody, especially right now. Because we're living in a time of division, a time of fear. People are anxious, financially stressed, politically polarized, spiritually exhausted. And when societies become fearful, it's natural for people to begin withdrawing from one another. We become suspicious, defensive, and our society maybe even tribal, sticking together. Because fear narrows the heart, yet the Buddha's teachings widen it. And one thing to remember is that loneliness and self-centeredness reinforce each other. When we're lonely, we often go inward, and when we go inward, loneliness often deepens. The Buddha consistently taught practices that move us gently outward. Generosity, kindness, service, compassion, ethical speech, community. Why? Because awakening is relational. Every time we sincerely care for another person, we weaken the illusion that we are separate. We are not separate. Somebody made sure that air conditioning was going. Somebody came and had everything set up very nicely. Somebody put up the stop signs that kept you from getting hit. Somebody made a meal for you if you ate out, or somebody put together and got the food together that was sold. I like stalkers in the grocery store. You ever keep track of stalkers? I like to talk to them. Thank you for putting everything up, especially if I see one who is challenged height-wise. How did you get up there? And they look at me like, well, why do you ask that? Because I can't reach down low like you did. Our mail carrier who's retiring. One of the first things I did when I moved there was learn her name. And the second time when I met her and I called her by her name, she looked at me like, but recognizing people who are in front of us, knowing they are there. And sometimes the greatest generosity is simply attention. Listening fully. Remembering someone. inviting someone to lunch, making room for someone at the table, or even for them to sit beside you, all these are acts of generosity. And giving another person the experience of belonging may be one of the greatest gifts you can give. The Buddha also taught right speech, and honestly, in today's world, right speech, especially kind speech, is becoming rarer and rarer. Many people are starving for the simple warmth of human interaction. Sincere conversation, a patient listener. And that's one of the best things that, for me, about beginning a meditation practice, a regular, dedicated meditation practice, was learning to be fully present when someone's talking to me. To be there. Because there's so many other places our mind can go. I made a lot of talks on grief when I was working in hospice. And I would tell people, it usually got a laugh, but I would tell people, this talk is about 23 minutes. But you have a wonderful thing that you brought with you, and it's your mind. And if you get tired of listening to me, you can just go away. And I won't know. If there's somewhere that you've been on vacation and you'd like to go back to, you can just go away. If there's things you got to do, if there's shopping, if there's things coming up that you really want to get out of here, you can just go away. And I won't know. And it's fine. And I think usually it made them listen. What's he going to say next? And how does he know what I'm thinking? Well, I don't. But a sincere conversation with a patient listener, and not someone who's trying to win an argument, is acknowledging someone. And even some people that we possibly disagree with, if we can just hear them and be present. There are many other areas of life that we do agree on, like breathing and love and kindness. And I think one of the most significant things those of us who practice can do right now is to help create a space of calmness, a calm presence. To become people who are safe to talk to, people who listen differently, people who soften suffering instead of amplifying agitation. And this itself is a part of our Dharma practice. Now, this doesn't mean we abandon our own quiet times, and this certainly doesn't mean we go up to everybody who think might be lonely and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Because for some people, solitude and quietness, and some people are just naturally quiet. Especially we introverts. But you can let someone know that you care about them by eye contact, giving them the space and having your space, but sincerely letting them know, even with your posture, that you're present, you're there. Wise solitude says, "I'm peacefully connected to life," contrasting loneliness, which says, "I feel cut off." The Buddha often went into solitude, not because he wanted to be away from people, but because it was time to recharge. Every night, this thing needs to be recharged. This thing does too. People who are inwardly grounded are often more capable of genuine connection. So our practice becomes both inward and outward, cultivating inner stability while remaining compassionately connected to the world. One of the deepest questions we can ask ourselves, even tonight, is, who around me may be lonely? Who hasn't been called? Who sits alone? Who have I been saying I was going to introduce myself to that I've not done yet? Who feels like maybe nobody notices them? And then the next step is, what small act of care is possible? Not heroic, not dramatic, but just human. A phone call, a meal, a conversation, an invitation, a few extra minutes after meditation, learning someone's name, sitting beside the person sitting alone. Small acts change lives, and they change us too, because every act of kindness is an opportunity to weaken greed, hatred, and delusion. Every act of inclusion weakens separation. Every act of loving kindness becomes practice. So helping the lonely is not separate from the path, as the Buddha told Ananda, it is the path. And maybe in these uncertain times, one of the most important forms of practice is simply to help each other remember that we're not alone. All the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? Where do they all belong? They belong in our minds, in our hearts, and in our practice. Look around at all the lonely people. Let's sit for a moment.